Well, 2024 is going, gone, and there were a lot of predictions made that we can look back now and learn some stuff about what was predicted for 2024. And we are going to actually pick a little bit on Zillow because they love making predictions. And the truth is, I made some predictions too.
The only problem was, I was wrong.
I don't know about you, but there's something magical about trying to look into the future and figuring out exactly what's going to happen. And when we looked into the future in 2024, boy, did a lot of people get things wrong and a few things right. And we're going to look at this article by Zillow where they kind of spell out, and more importantly, I want to look at why they were wrong because it could impact how things play out in 2025. So on November 30th, 2023, Zillow put out their 2024 housing market predictions. And the first prediction was that more homes will hit the market as homeowners accept that mortgage rates aren't falling anytime soon. Higher for longer is the key refrain regarding mortgage rates. And they also talked about more homes on the market, meaning there would get to be more homes. Now, they were definitely right as far as interest rates go, because interest rates, people were predicting much, much lower rates than where we ended up. This is an article from Housing Wire predicting 2024 rates. And you can see right here, we had Wells Fargo predicting rates down in almost 6%. Same with the Mortgage Brokers Association, National Association of Realtors, maybe 6.25, 6.375, Redfin. And look at Fannie Mae right here above 7%. Well, who was right? Well, when we look where rates are at today, we can see, unfortunately, the 30-year fixed rate mortgage has jumped up to 7%. Now, the interesting thing about what happened when they were predicting the future is they were pricing in more rate cuts from the Fed. And if the Fed were to do that, you could see how far that was driving rates lower. But once the Fed backed off and said they are not going to do as many cuts, we are right back up over 7%. And then lastly, what do people say in 2025? We have rates from Redfin predicting a high of 6.8%. And the National Association of Realtors predicting all the way down to 5.8%. Now, rates, data, all this can change so easily. Everybody had rates wrong, in my opinion, as far as where we would be right now. Hardly anybody, except for apparently Fannie Mae, thinking rates would still be over 7%, which they are at the end of 2024. Now, everyone's rate is different. When we look at paying the average cost and the average lender and the average credit, that's just an idea of where rates are at. The other thing they talked about was housing inventory. And we can see here that the active listings did go up. And I like to look here right at home where I'm at in Florida. Housing supply, you can see from here, did shoot up. I mean, if you look back 2022, we have almost doubled the amount of inventory in 7 months of supply. And that's not a surprise, right? With rates being higher, supply is going to go higher. Zillow and almost everyone predicting more inventory. Personally, I predicted rates to be under 6%, and boy, was that a big miss. And I also thought that we would have more supply, but I did not think we would get up to 5, 6, 7 months of inventory. And that's about where we're at, especially here in Florida. And if we look forward to 2025, this is just 3 predictions: Housing Wire, Bright MLS, and Realtor.com, all predicting inventory to go up 10 to 13%. We're going to come back to that because that is going to play out and what is likely to happen on housing prices as we go through 2025. The next prediction Zillow made is home buying costs will level off, giving hopeful buyers a chance to catch up. They talk about that the typical payment for most people is 40% of their earnings, and that Zillow would predict for rates to still stay high, but maybe pricing to stay super flat, go down a little bit, and at the same time for cost and lending to come down. Now, I can tell you, being in the mortgage business, costs have not came down at all. So that was a wrong prediction. In fact, when you look at taxes and insurance, if anything, a lot of those costs have went up. And when you look at prices, Zillow predicting pretty much a flat market. Now, Fred here, which is just one measure nationally, says that we have a little bit of decrease in median price, though it's went up recently. Redfin shows that we're up 4% year over year. And here in Florida, the median has not really changed. We're right around 407. Remember, a lot of this gets adjusted seasonally in times of the year, but really no big price correction anywhere nationally other than a few key markets. There have been some places in California, even now in like Cape Coral and parts of Florida, where I think you're going to likely see some price depreciation, but not to the crash level that a lot of what I call the crash brothers on YouTube are predicting. But you are going to see those markets continue to get softer. And when we look at price forecasts across the nation in 2025, you have this Apollo Global Management, I don't know where they are, 10.8%, Moody's at 0.4%. But if you kind of knock off the highs and the lows, pretty much everywhere from Fannie Mae, Housing Wire, Zillow, CoreLogic, NAR, all predicting 2 to 4% appreciation, which I think is likely to happen when we go through 2025. Now, one of the big factors on this, which a lot of people would question, and it does make sense, if inventory is going up, wouldn't that drive prices down? And the answer is yes. If inventory goes up, it does drive prices down, and we are seeing that. We are seeing more flexible sellers. Sellers have to come off their price sometimes to get and attract more buyers. But we still nationally don't have homes up to where they have been as far as actual available inventory, even though in Florida we actually do. But Florida still has a lot of demand. And the reason that a lot of people are predicting housing market to stay flat or go up 2, 3, 4% is because rates are likely to fall throughout next year. Most people predicting rates to be right around the mid sixes in 2025, which I personally would agree with. Now, one other last thing that I want to look at are housing transactions. The average transaction in a normal market is around 4.5 to 5 million. You can see during the pandemic, after the pandemic, during that time, we went over 6.6 million. We fell all the way below 4 million, and we've kind of crawled up, but transactions are still really, really low. And that's just a function of rates. So goes the rates, so goes the market. And as rates start coming down, that pushes a few more buyers into the market. And we will see with, the election and some of the things like that, some of the things that, Trump, for instance, and this is not a political commentary, but as far as tariffs could be considered inflationary. And it doesn't really matter what I think. It matters what the Fed thinks. And if the Fed thinks there could be more inflation, that's going to affect what they do with the Fed funds rate. Right? They're going to tend to want to keep it higher. At the same time of unemployment, which I think is a little worse than what the Fed thinks. If that unemployment ticks up, then they're going to have pressure to bring rates down. And remember, if rates fall, in general, it's a sign that things are not great. The Fed does not lower rates to help people. They typically lower them in reaction to inflation and unemployment and the other factors that they look at. So in 2025, those are the big things that we want to see play out. How much inventory will we get? If we get another 5 or 10%, we could get to 8, 9 months of inventory, definitely in some markets. Now remember, during the Great Recession, we had like 20, 25, 30 months of inventory. That definitely will make a softer market. Now, if you're in the business and you're doing mortgages or doing real estate, what will this market feel like in 2025?
I'm reliving the same day over and over.
That's right. I think it's going to feel very, very similar to 2024. It's going to be a repeat of last year, which for some agents is really, really good news, because a lot of agents I know, because the realtor pool has shrunk, the really good agents tend to rise to the top, are having some of their best years ever. And I believe 2025 for them will continue. Now, if you've been in the mortgage business, it's definitely been different. There's almost 60, 70% by some measure, mortgage professionals that are no longer in the business. Now that probably some part-time agents, people that really didn't, do it full time. But a lot of people are gone. So if you're in the mortgage business, last year, for many people, is not going to be considered your best year ever. But we are seeing transactions. I mean, there were still over 4 million transactions last year, and that number will likely go up. So we will see this. I believe we might get back to 4.5 million transactions if we can get rates below 6.5%. I'm going to go on a limb on my prediction rates for the end of 2025 is going to be 6.25%. That is going to drive some refinances for people that had rates above 7, even 8%, depending on their credit when rates got really high. So that will drive some refinance business. And in general, I think the market does have a little more of a tailwind than it had last year. But good news is, for the people that did very well last year, it's going to be more of the same. So it's going to be really interesting to track inventory, unemployment, inflation, what the Fed does, and are we going to have tariffs and those kinds of things, and how will the Fed react to all that? More importantly, create a daily success plan. The data is fun to do, but the data you really want to track is what you're doing every day. So if you don't know how to do that, reach out to me. If you want to know how to put together creative lending programs for your clients, I'd love to talk to you about that too. More importantly, as more information becomes available that moves the market, as always, I'm going to cover it right here. Have a great 2025. I think it's going to be an awesome year. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.